Okay, let's power up a little bit. I can probably do like maybe 1 or 2 more runs, and then I'm gonna want to switch to something else just for, you know, variety is the spice of life. Let's max out life. Oh, recovers HP per rank per second. Oh, they changed that. That used to be per level. This makes a lot more sense. It's still terrible, but that softens the blow a little bit. So what do we want to do here? Well, I could do Pascalina. Projectiles get 10% faster every 5 levels, max 30%. She starts with the Rune Tracer. Let's take her to the library. Why not? I feel like the Santa Water as a sleeper weapon is just that good. I'm here and there on the Santa Water. Okay. Oh, hers are things get faster. Let's grab the King Bible. Let's go for Speed Bible. Okay. And do I want the Fire Wand? I think we want the Fire Wand. Pairs with a spinach, also projectile that can go fast. Santa Water is great, and oddly enough, I think it shines early and late, but it's kind of meh mid-game. It's good really early. I think it's okay. I think there are better. Do we want to grab the axe? Do we want the axe or the magic wand? The axe works on AoE. The magic wand works on cooldown. Let's go for the magic wand. We did axe the last round. The item screen on the left, new or is it a mod? It's new. It's on the beta branch if you want to get access to it. Does the clock have an upgrade? No, sadly. Let's grab the Spellbinder while we're here. And honestly, I might get this character the bone just if we get the chance. We will see. So I was asked, are there other games that I find are unapproachable other than Bloodborne? That's a toughie. You know, I honestly found Sekiro to actually be pretty playable. The parry system in that felt a lot better. What are some good examples? Well, okay, odd one. And maybe not in the same way as like some other games. Games like Kenshi and Project Zomboid. So I've been playing Project Zomboid on my own, just to get good enough that I could leave a house without dying. I think part of it is I need to play on an easier difficulty, maybe to get used to it and get used to the systems. But I feel like those games are ones that are at least somewhat unapproachable. But at least I know I could get to that point, not because I'm bad, but because the learning curve on both of them is just so damn steep. And the time curve is just so damn steep that as much as I'd like to get into them, it's kind of tough. I used to feel that way about... Oh, if we're projectile speed based, do I want to go Bracer for Hella Knife? So like Spelunky maybe. Spelunky, another good example. I would love to actually get decent at Spelunky. I think it actually would be a really cool... I think it would be a really cool game to get used to. But I'm so trash at it that... I'm so trash, I'm so impatient. And I just am not a platformer guy. I love Metroidvanias, like I'll gladly do that. But outside of that, maybe not. Let's see. But yeah, that's one of those games that the learning curve tax is so steep that some people are going to get way into it, but for people like me, I'm just kind of like, boy, I wish there was a version of this where I just didn't die. Maybe La Mulana? Games that really like to relish in your frustration, I find are games that I kind of lose interest in very fast. Because the core gameplay loop reveals itself and then just punishes you to kind of draw it out. Dwarf Fortress is the unapproachable game. Yeah. I like Dwarf Fortress, and I did actually spend a fair amount of time back in the day learning how to play it. I've lost all of that now, and I'm pretty sure I couldn't go back. The other thing is I kind of find RimWorld to be a lot better. Mainly just the visual aspect of it, and just the things that you can kind of do. Objection, Dwarf Fortress barely qualifies as a game. Hey, I think it's a game once you've put in that tax, but prior to learning Dwarf Fortress, it's a losing simulator. Yeah, wow. Okay, so World of Warcraft is kind of unapproachable for two reasons for me. I used to play WoW. I used to be a very avid player. Absolutely loved it. Was like one of my favorite games growing up, just because there's kind of that sense of community and there was so much content to do. Sure, it cost $15 a month, but that was cheaper than, say, buying BioShock Infinite on launch. Or, you know, buying a new game every day, every month, or something like that. Like, I could kind of mentally justify its existence. EVE Online, yeah. Most MMOs have this problem for me, where to play an MMO, you have to dedicate your life to it. You can't just play World of Warcraft casually. You really either have to get sucked in, or it's just not worth it for you. Kind of in the same way, I've actually been playing Final Fantasy XIV recently. It's actually by and far like one of the best games I've ever played, but the time cost to play and get to the end of the main story quest in Final Fantasy XIV is like, I don't want to say absurd, because there are plenty of games that are longer than it probably, but like, I've been putting in at least 10 hours a week into just beating the main story quest for almost the entirety of 2021, and I think I'm almost to Endwalker, but there's still some other stuff. Warframe, yeah, that's another one. But so many of these are just kind of a time tax. It's kind of, I feel like it's unfair to necessarily go after them. EVE Online is a game with a very steep learning curve too. Yeah, I played it for a little bit back in high school when it first came out. They were like, hey, you know, we've got a 15-day free trial, give it a shot. And I was like, okay, and then I could not do anything. Real life is the biggest learning curve. Give us an easy mode. I feel like the wild part about life's learning curve is that it's almost intentionally withheld from us to some degree, just so that we have to pay for it later. Like, at least in the US, I'm still mad about the fact that like tax preparation software companies lobbied to make the tax code arcane and awkward, and the tax filing purposes process extra inconvenient, so that people would buy their products instead. Like, I'm super mad about that, because it's just like that. This helps no one but you, and now I have to spend hours doing my taxes every year, and I don't like it. TurboTax this year isn't free to file. Yeah, I do not use them anymore, but it's ugh. But that, you know, I'm always baffled by the fact that, especially like in the US, I can't talk about this in other countries, they really should have classes in high school on like, hey, here's how to be a functional adult. We're gonna teach you everything, the damn basics that your parents might not teach you. Like how to file your taxes, how to deal with bills, what is, you know, what's an overdraft fee, things that, you know, might get sprung on you in college or high school in a way that like are kind of not great. What are some other easy examples? In other countries, they literally just send you a pre-filled tax form, and if it's correct, you just sign it and send it back. Yup, that would be nice. My youngest has those classes these years. Oh, see, I didn't get anything like that. All we had was like, here's how to baby, and it's just like, I guess. I mean, my middle and high school actually did have a teen birth problem, so it kind of made sense. But yeah, balancing a checkpoint. Just good budgeting and diet. Because like I had cooking classes, but they never actually sat down and said like, hey, at some point you're going to be middle-aged, and then your your sweet, you know, teenager metabolism is going to leave you forever. And then you're going to have to worry about not becoming chunky. And you're also going to have to worry about, you know, all of these other kind of weird problems that nobody tells you about. Like, luckily, the internet kind of tells you about these things nowadays. But I've found with the way the internet used to work, you could just look up anything and you get a solution. Nowadays, when you look stuff up, you have to figure out, okay, is this website just one of those shitty websites that says nothing and just has like gobs of advertisements that you have to just swim through in hopes of finding the answer you're looking for? You know, prior to websites just going full ad crazy, like that wasn't so bad. Nowadays, well, no, it still was bad, but it was easier to find information because somebody would have, you know, actually just had a tidy little website to explain those things. The Google engineers work very hard on filtering those websites out. Yeah, but I mean, you can only do so much though, because that's like the only way to make money on half of these sites. That is kind of the rough part. Like, whenever I try and pick out like a recipe, like Shell and I will be like, hey, we want to make banana bread. Let's just find a banana bread recipe. And what we should do is make our own cookbook, but you know, we Google it. And for, you know, kind of when we were in college, it was easy. You just Googled it and you'd find a website and the website would just have the recipe right then and there. Now you have to deal with a person's personal history in there. Their grandmother's vaunted secrets of banana bread, which is put the bananas in the bread. And so, like, I can't find recipe websites that aren't just garbage nowadays. I get it. Like, they gotta make money too. But it's pain. It's pain. And, I don't know. I feel woefully unprepared, going into house hunting at the moment. And some part of it is just because I've been putting it off because I got other work to do. But, you know, at this point, rent has become kind of grossly expensive. So now it's just like, all right, wow, something just absolutely wrecked that group. Probably just, wow, yeah, those rune tracers are nuts. Have I seen a clover go by? I think I've just been on autopilot for maybe a little too long. Oh, it's fine. Do I want the candelabra door? No. We got the bracer. We need the book, but we don't need the book right now. We need the spinach, and we need the clover. Everything else is kind of okay. I'm just lucky enough to live in a relatively cheap place. It kind of depends where you're at in the country. We tried Portland for a while knowing it was going to be kind of expensive, but our rent has gone up by like 25%. I know that's actually comparatively low, I think, for the US. I saw a post on the internet. Okay, there's Clover. I saw a post yesterday of somebody, their landlord was like ending their lease, you know, at the end of the period, you know, a couple months. And it was like, we're raising your rent from, you know, 1,200 to 1,800 per month. And it's just like, I don't know. I don't feel like I'm getting what I'm paying for anymore. And so I kind of want to get into actual home ownership, so I don't have to worry about somebody saying like, hey, we're raising your rent by 50%. There was recently a company so fed up with refusal of the government to regulate this that they decided to buy a bunch of places and rent them like 10% of what people get. Wow, that's actually very nice of them. Most places and people that I know are just like, oh man, rent money is going through the roof. Time to get into real estate so we can sell it too. And it's like, no, don't do that. That's how nobody gets to be able to pay anything. Instead, you have to deal with, hey, we're raising your property tax. True, but if it gets so bad, then I can just sell the house and bail. But also, they're not going to raise the property tax by 50%. Boy, if property taxes went up by 50%, City Hall would burn. I have a low opinion of most people's ability for activism, but if you start like going after people to that extent, I think you'd see some very upset folks. Or just taxes not being paid. But also, the other thing I would say is that, like, at least with stuff like property taxes, there's somewhat of a feel of, yes, this actually, this does some service for the community. You know, when you're paying a landlord thousands of dollars a month, that's just going to the landlord and, you know, their property taxes and whatnot. But, you know, the profits from that goes to the landlord. When I was in high school, my school was having budget problems because they kept lowering property taxes, which is fine to some degree. I mean, lowering property taxes is kind of fine if it's reasonable to do so. But like we had to cut our computer science program because we didn't have enough computers. And I realized like that's not the rule, and like a lot of places are way worse managed than this. But that our school is having serious budget issues across the board. And needed, you know, property taxes not to go down to actually pay the bills and get good teachers and whatnot. And so town actually sat down, balanced the budget, and it wasn't like crooked accounting. This is just like, hey, shit's expensive, we need to pay for it. And a lot of people kicked up a fuss about property taxes potentially being raised to pay for it, because that was the kind of the agreed upon, like, yeah, this is probably the easiest way to do it. And what ended up happening is you had a bunch of old retirees that lived in the town that were suddenly really, really pissed that we were raising property taxes for the town to fund schools. And they're mad because they didn't have kids in the school system, so why should they have to pay for it? And I got very acquainted with arguments from mostly students trying to advocate for this. Talking specifically about like the effects of a good education system on property crime and like youth crime, and that, yeah, the better educated your kids are, the less likely they are to break into your house for whatever. And so eventually, you know, it got resolved. I'm pretty sure, you know, the property the taxes got passed. And as far as like this town specifically, it always felt like, yeah, it's a fair price to pay for living in probably one of the nicer towns I've ever seen. Like I'm looking forward to moving back, even though I can't afford to live there, which sucks. You know, I'm looking forward to being back there just so I can like walk around and appreciate, you know, what the town has while I'm living there. No, in my area, it isn't a property tax that pays for the school; it's a school tax. Huh. You mean like specifically taxes people that go to school, or I guess parents? Because the one umbrage that I take with specifically only taxing parents in a school system is a lot of young parents tend to not have as much money as like older people, and that one's kind of tough. That it's, especially with like current wealth distribution, like my generation is poor as shit. So if you wanna have millennials fund schooling, then get ready for no education in the US, which I'm sure a lot of people like the idea of. But, you know, it's so concentrated on the top and also with the elderly that it makes it a little tougher. Do we want to get a duplicator? Yes, because we're pretty heavily projectile focused and we don't have any boosts. A lot of people complaining that there used to be so many kids in the neighborhood. They won't sell their house. Yup. I was reading about... I definitely remember one where I think I was living in North Carolina, and they had shut down the community center and then had voted not to provide any like alternative like summer programs for kids to give them something to do. And so all of a sudden you had a summer where you had roving packs of kids just wandering the town with nothing better to do, because there wasn't, like, the sports programs had gotten defunded and a bunch of other things. And a bunch of people were mad because all of a sudden all these kids are loose, and it's like, well, you took away what made the town interesting and fun for them, so now what do? It's weird. Life is weird. Oh, a while back I found a website that removes the useless clutter from recipe websites. Left a link for you on Discord. My problem is it's on my phone, so I'd have to check that. I personally wouldn't be against more general taxing and funding for schools if the education was useful. Major gripes with how the university and college works. Well, I mean, so much of it is for profit. I liked my college enough, but it was dog shit for me. The only reason why it was good was because of one teacher, and then my peer group. And then otherwise, like, going to college was only useful because I learned how to be a good student. What do I not have? We don't have the book, but we don't want to grab the book. I think I might want to just grab the attract orb for my own convenience. Yeah, school's a really great thing. That thing is badly done. Well, I mean, so much of school is because school was designed to get people used to the idea of working in a factory. You know, a lot of it is about compliance and very little about it. Very little of education is actually like focused on the, whoops, I don't actually know what I did. I picked something. Well, it's okay, my build's complete, so it doesn't really matter. I should go get the book. But yeah, so, you know, primary schooling is to kind of teach you compliance and how to be a good factory worker, and then higher education is for profit more often than not if you want to get a good education, which means they're trying to bleed you dry as much as possible. Like, my college keeps asking for more money from me, and I'm like, you got over $100,000 for me from tuition. You're not getting more donations. Especially because they kept cutting my program while I was there. So, like, specifically, I was in the illustration department, and we had this nice third-floor studio. It actually wasn't very nice. It was kind of garbage. But it was nice enough for what we needed it to be. But it was just this, like, kind of big concrete room with a bunch of desks divided by kind of cubicle things. And it worked well for us at the time. But we only had a handful of computers and only a handful of Cintiqs, and they got rid of all of the good teachers because they couldn't get rid of the tenured ones, which, I mean, it's fine, kind of. But my last year that we were there, they were starting to discuss changes to the program. And all the changes to the program were just, like, demonstrably awful, like, fire the teachers, get rid of the computers and give them to another department instead, and just kind of kept going like that. And so specifically, the way I hear about it now is that they actually put the illustration department that I'd gone there for a degree for. They took them and they put them in the basement. No windows, tiny rooms, bad ventilation, and it's just like, you want my money, you got to make my degree program actually worth funding again. Otherwise, I'm not giving it a cent. And even then, it's like, ugh. But no, honestly, I think education should be free, and teachers should be honestly bafflingly well paid. The fact that teachers are some of the worst paid people in the US is just wild. The concept of investing for the future instead of, you know, just kind of the next little while sounds like an awful school. It was an okay school. Once again, it was the peer group that I paid into, and I think the peer group was very worthwhile, but it wasn't great. But I'd rather we stop with this whole, like, you know, just looking for whatever makes the most amount of money in the shortest period of time. Wow. Okay, that's 3 levels right there. Because, like, I know as a personal level, like, I'm not trying to go for short-term profits with long-term negative consequences. I've always thought about that from, like, a YouTube perspective, that, like, I know there's a number of YouTubers that go full, like, horrible clickbait because they know that if they go full horrible clickbait, they'll be able to make, like, mad bank for a couple of years and then get out while the going is good. And I just don't think I could do that. I'm definitely trying to figure out, like, how to optimize my business so I'm not, like, burning out hard. But there's no feeling of, like, I need to do this so I can get rich as shit. But that I've cut ties with a number of creators because that was their goal. To clickbait hard, make as much sweet YouTube ad rev money on sponsorship deals, and then inevitably, once their channel starts to crash and burn, they just bail and retire. And I get it, like, it's actually not a bad business plan for a lot of these people, just because, I mean, part of the thing is, like, yeah, they're probably kind of sociopathic to begin with. But the idea of retiring at, like, 40-something is maybe an attractive prospect for some people that just don't want to do anything, you know, just spend all day doing whatever. But I feel like that's a really bad way to think about anything. Kind of like art and artists. I knew a number of artists that were, like, really getting hard into non-fungible trash or whatever it is. They're like, we're gonna make thousands, and then, like, threw their lot in with literal scammers. I don't know if you guys have seen the... Was it Troy Baker? Troy Baker did that recently, and it was just, like, kind of disgusting. And there's always just kind of that feeling of, like, instead of bettering the world, I exist to extract as much as I can out of it for myself. And then anybody else that can't do that is just not trying hard enough. And I always get stuck on that one a little bit, because it's just like, oh, that's a dark mentality. I like it when everybody around me is happy, because then I kind of feel like I should also be happy in that. The problem with a lot of these plans you're talking about is you only win if somebody loses. Yep. Like, honestly, this is very true. Going back to the kind of YouTubers that go, like, full on, like, I'm here to extract wealth. You'll notice a lot of these people are people that are actively targeting kids. So I remember a while back I got into a small argument with another creator, who, oddly enough, like, had kids of his own. And I had specifically kind of made the point, like, hey, I'm kind of responsible for my viewers. Even if, like, ultimately I'm not that responsible for you guys. Like, if you guys do something, I am not dad. I'm not here to bail you out. I can't be. But the stuff that I talk about, like, whatever values I'm espousing or whatever ideas that I'm talking about, I feel like, to some degree, this dialogue is kind of fundamentally important to have, and I know a number of people specifically want to just kind of shut their brains off and play video games and stuff, and I respect that too, and I think there are times for that, but at the same time, one, what do I even talk about with this game anymore? I'm just kind of going, and I actually really like that state of being for a video game. Once it becomes kind of this casual, just hang out, make something ridiculous, be a light show, and then talk about something that's interesting or important to me. I really need some water. But so this guy specifically had a much, much younger audience, and we were talking about, like, effectively bullying, and, not having audiences, like, not pushing your audiences or, like, presenting a negative viewpoint on the world. I'm trying to phrase this in a better way, but effectively it's like, in my opinion, any creator or influencer is somewhat responsible for what they present to the world. I think, say, the Kardashians are terrible people, not necessarily because of what they believe in or what they do necessarily, but because of the kind of morals and the concepts that they specifically have pushed onto society and kind of pushed forward. That this kind of rampant materialism, and oftentimes to the detriment of the people around them, you know, that often is kind of this extremely negative experience to be subjected to as another person. And that when you kind of push that as an ideal, a lot of people will probably look at it and be like, yeah, that's not sane. But a lot of people will actually be like, no, that's good. Or, you know, just they're not thinking hard enough, or they can't, like, define it as, like, this is a bad thing because they just don't have the wherewithal to sit down. And so talking about, like, selfishism and stuff like that, when you're in a position of influence and your entire ethos is I'm here to make as much money and get out, like, that leaks into your content, just like how I'm an extreme bleeding heart, and for sure that leaks in. And, you know, the younger your audience, the more likely it is to actually have, like, a long-lasting influence. And so I feel like social media influencers, especially YouTubers who are, you know, front-facing and entertaining children for hours. You know, these people are no different from Blue's Clues, no different from Magic School Bus, as grim as that is to some degree. And that, you know, you kind of have to pick and choose who your influences are from that. And so, like, for me, I want to say that, like, I owe a lot of my core morality to, oddly enough, video games and movies and sci-fi stuff from, like, a long time ago. Like, I will go back to all of these old shows and be like, oh, that's why I think this way. Because this show presented this concept in this manner. Like, Mr. I don't play games with women ninja. That was the core thing. That's what I was, arguing with this YouTuber over. I forgot about this. Yeah, I had specifically, I think I'd kind of subtweeted on it. It's just like, you know, women exist more than just kind of as this thing. And that, you know, you really have to kind of present that, like, this is not something that is okay. And this other YouTuber had vehemently disagreed with me, and I was just like, when Ninja says, I don't play games with women, obviously, to some degree, like, that's kind of fine if that's what he truly, like, does not want to. But when you espouse those publicly, and even, honestly, his actions, like, if he was a private individual, maybe that'd be fine, because it's like, okay, fine, you just be that way. But when you have such a large audience of, like, younger people that could be influenced by this idea, that it kind of perpetuates the idea that it is okay to not play with women for some reason. And it's, I don't know, it's not a good place to be. I know G4 TV kind of had a thing recently where one of their hosts went on a long spiel about how she's not just an object to be ogled. If you guys didn't know, G4 TV kind of relaunched recently, and they've got an absolutely lovely set of hosts, but one of them, whenever she would pop on in any of their videos or streams, people would inherently be more negative towards her than any of the guys, even if she specifically had no hand in writing the script, or if the things that they were saying were ultimately the same. And so she went on a long spiel about, you know, how that's not okay. And, you know, a lot of people have come out in support of that, and that's really positive and quite nice. But, you know, as a dude, I don't have to deal with this too much, but I do see it happen. With Shell specifically, you know, when she would be on the show, there were definitely some people saying, ditch the girl, who's the female? And it's just like, it's really, really hard to untrain people from these ideas. And so gaming for a while being kind of this men's club is actively a bad thing. I know there are many people that are going to disagree with me tremendously and say, no, women are somehow ruining the gaming industry, which, like, I don't even talk to people that have this opinion, so I can't really articulate why they have this, apart from, I guess, girls don't like COD, but whatever. Is Ninja married? Yes. I think part of the reason why is specifically kind of that like, doesn't want to get close to other women because fear of cheating or something like that. And I know to some degree, for his defense, part of the reason why Jacksepticeye and Markiplier had stopped interacting as much was because people would not stop shipping them. And so, like, I can kind of understand the baseline idea of, like, why you would want to have that separation, because there are enough people that can ruin a good thing. And, like, it's not infrequent that you'll hear of, like, a female creator working with a male creator, and there's kind of that inherent, like, you know, are they together? And sometimes yes, sometimes no, but that should never be the person's first thought. Unless, of course, like, it's super obvious that they have, like, are probably a married couple. Like, I know with Shell, I definitely got a lot of comments, commenting on like, you know, who, you know, is she your girlfriend? Is she your wife? I also got a lot of people asking if she was my sister, which is a little weird. But yeah, IRL shipping is so uncomfortable. And even with, like, characters in a lot of series and shows, it gets kind of weird. I kind of jokingly brought up Warhammer and also Warhammer and Homestuck, but part of the reason why I never got into Homestuck was the shipping on that got gross. But it was also the developers. It was Andrew Hussey's like modus operandi to push that, so why not? You've seen the fanfic, it's hilariously bad. Nope. I stay away from that shit. I stay away from fandom. I knew people that got like really deep into that kind of thing and I just can't. I'm too aggressively normal. Love how they had the whole shipping situation in the series community. We are not pandas in a zoo. Yeah, that's a good way of putting it. But a lot of people can't kind of separate that out. And so I think it kind of goes back to my point of like, you really got to push some of these kind of ethoses, because there's a lot of things that if you don't push back on like negative ideas, then it kind of rots. And that's actually been kind of one of my like ruling guiding stars as far as like what I do, of the idea of like, if a well-tended garden, or no, a poorly tended garden grows weeds, or weeds spread in an untended garden. Is that it? I forget. Somebody had that quote from a couple of days ago and I really liked it. But the idea of like, yeah, if you're not tending your garden, it's gonna get like hella weeds and gets bad. A watch pot never boils. Kind of, except for watch pot means like you're not doing anything. This would be like a watch pot, an unwatched pot grows mold. Like it doesn't work quite the same way. Dang, I was trying to find the stone mask, but either I passed it or I don't know. Feels a bit similar to Japanese and Korean idols and celebrities. If fans find out you're dating someone, they go crazy. Yup. I mean, honestly, it's the same thing with, like, I don't know how many of you guys ever followed the royal family shit for Britain, but seeing everybody lose their mind over, what's-his-face marrying a commoner, and then quitting the royal family and a bunch of other stuff, like, seeing that happen, in the wake after what happened to, wasn't it his mother? Like, didn't straight up the paparazzi effectively kill his mother too? Like, that specific shit was very, oh, it took him a little bit. That shit was unacceptable, and the fact that it, like, has been perpetuated for years is just baffling and sad. Yeah, Princess Di was his mom. Yeah, so they effectively destroyed her life and then, you know, chased her to the point of her death. And the fact that was a really good run, by the way. I said nothing about it, but that was a good run all the same. What do I do next? Big punch? Maybe big punch. Let's do a big punch run. I'll keep talking about this stuff.